constitutionality, Representative Clyburn just readily admitted most of the things we do in Washington have no constitutional authority. It is amazing and appalling. This Supreme Court case, though, will be much more than health care. It's going to be about whether or not we believe that our government should be restrained by the Constitution. I think for 60 or 70 years we've been gradually going down this road of becoming more of a majoritarian rule, a democracy. Jefferson said that a democracy would be nothing more than mild rule. Our founding fathers knew the difference between a republic and a democracy. Our understanding of the Commerce Clause has become so broad that I often will say, if my shoes were made in Tennessee, they'll regulate my walking in Kentucky. Recently, Senator Coburn, in one of the committee hearings, asked Elena Kagan, he said, well, do you think the government through the Commerce Clause could regulate that you eat 3 vegetables a day? Her response was yes. It is important who the next president will be. It is important who is on the Supreme Court, and we better make darn certain that we get the right person in 2012. We face a looming debt crisis. It's worse than you can imagine. It really is coming upon us quickly. I went to a presentation this week where they said Japan has passed the point of no return. They don't think Japan will come out from under its debt. They say when a country gets to where its debt equals its economy, when your total debt is about equal to your gross domestic product, that you approach a point of no return. We're quickly approaching that point. And what kind of leadership are we getting, though? The President of the United States wants to sound like he's now conservative. He's going to freeze spending. He's going to freeze this much of the budget at inflated levels of spending, and over 5 years he's going to add $3.8 trillion to the debt. It's unacceptable. But you are the conservatives and you drive the debate. So what I'm going to tell you next, you may not want to hear, but it's true. The House Republican proposal will freeze this much of the budget at 2008 levels and will add $3 trillion to the debt over 5 years. It's too little, it's not enough, it's too timid, and we must be more bold. They're talking about cutting $35 billion. We spend $35 billion in 5 days. We add $35 billion to the debt in 9 days. It's not enough, and we will not avoid financial ruin in our country unless we think more boldly. We must cut more spending. We must cut out the unconstitutional programs that we never intended to have here. We used to say as Republicans that we thought education was for the states and the localities. The Department of Education was consuming $100 billion, and it's time we go back to the Republican roots. It says we believe in abolishing the Department of Education. There is, though, one compromise we will have to make as conservatives. Those of you who know me know I don't like to compromise. But there is one compromise you have to make. And this is the compromise, and you have to think this through. We have always been, as conservatives, against the domestic welfare, the abuses of domestic spending, for making domestic spending smaller. But you have to understand that that's this much of the budget. If you cut out all discretionary, non-military spending, you don't balance the budget. You can't get there unless you look at the whole budget. That means we will have to have entitlement reform. conservatives also will have to make. We will have to look long and hard at the military budget. The thing is that the most important thing that our government does, the one primary and most important constitutional thing our government does, is our national defense. Absolutely. But you cannot say that the doubling of the military budget in the last 10 years has all been spent wisely and that there's not any waste in it. If you refuse to acknowledge that there's any waste that can be culled from the military budget, you are a big government conservative and you cannot lay claim to that. With regard to entitlement reform, it has to happen. There isn't any question that it will happen. It's whether we do it gradually, in a rational manner, or whether we wait till there's a collapse of the country and we have to do it dramatically. Everybody knows the answer. I said it in my campaign, the Republicans attacked me for it, and so did the Democrats. The age of Social Security will have to gradually rise. A note from a young man who worked in the campaign, and he may be here today. He said, "Thanks for proposing the $500 billion in budget cuts. Thanks for tackling the Social Security problem." And then he put as an afterthought, "P.S. I wouldn't mind opting out of Social Security." Our country stands at a precipice. America's greatness and exceptionalism are because we chose economic and political freedom. We are not inherently exceptional. We are exceptional because we chose freedom, and we chose to protect that freedom from tyranny with the Constitution. That's why we're exceptional. We can maintain that. We can maintain that exceptionalism, that freedom, that Constitution, but it won't happen lying down. We must choose bold leadership as we go into 2012. We need bold leadership. We can't have this incrementalism. It's not going to be enough. You need bold leadership who will stand up and say, this should be done in Washington, but this should be left to the states and the localities respectively. One person can make a difference. I think we are shaking it up. I think the Tea Party has had an enormous influence. This town is now talking about the debt and the deficit constantly. The Tea Party brought that to Washington. You can continue to pressure them, but don't let up. It's not enough to have Republicans in charge. We are not inherently exceptional as Republicans. You keep us safe, keeping the pressure on. Let's choose bold leadership in 2012. Thank you for having me.